Today on Rescue USA. A quiet suburban street becomes a virtual river, leaving one family scrambling to escape the rising tide.
My best friend is paralyzed. She's on the 3rd floor. I wouldn't leave without her.
Plus, caught in a flash flood, a man's Jeep becomes a floating raft.
It wasn't until my car started to turn, I'm like, yeah, this could be a real problem.
So he put out a social media distress call to anybody who would listen.
Not sure if I could swim this. Help would be nice.
It's times like these when we need a hero to help save the day.
The city of Dearborn Heights, Michigan was settled on the Rogue River by French farmers in the 18th century. And while the area's network of waterways have always played an important role in the survival of the city, they can also put people's lives in peril. That's what happened in 2019 as one family watched their quiet neighborhood street turn into a raging river. Dearborn Heights is a suburb of Detroit. It's just 15 miles from the Motor City. And with a population of just under 60,000 people, it offers a more peaceful alternative to living in that large city.
It is very homey. Citizens know each other, a lot of parks, water parks, outside stuff to do. Our doors are always open. We love our citizens and they love us.
And it's that laid-back lifestyle that attracted recent transplant Danny Cummings.
Neighbors are very nice. Obviously, the neighborhood is nice. Just quiet and simple, peaceful.
Less than a year ago, Danny moved to Dearborn Heights with her cousin Martell, who both work and care for a disabled housemate. And while Dearborn boasts a calmer way of life, it does share one thing with nearby Detroit: volatile weather.
Michigan weather is like, people can say it's bipolar, which it really is. It's up and down.
Our spring summers can be wet and cold. Storms can pop up out of nowhere. We're surrounded by water, but the 4 seasons, we get the worst and the best of them.
And Danny and Martell saw the worst of it when a major flood swallowed their neighborhood in May of 2019.
Me and my cousin, we had just got off of work. It was raining so hard. He was driving, I was asleep. I'm like, oh my God, it's raining so hard. Never thought twice about it.
By the time they got home, it was past 11 p.m., so they both just headed to bed. But the rain would not let up. Then they heard a knocking at the front door.
And I looked on the camera and it was the neighbors, and all I heard her say is, well, I'm trying to warn them.
What the neighbor was trying to tell them was that the street was beginning to flood. Having just moved to Dearborn Heights, Martell and Danny had no idea that their home sat right on the edge of Ecorse Creek.
The system's designed to handle about 2 inches of rain, and unfortunately, when we get more than that, we see the flooding.
Unaware of just how fast the water was rising, Martell and Danny tried to go back to sleep.
I heard like this rain showers like in the house. It was like someone was taking a shower in the basement. So I went down and I couldn't even get on the last stair. I'm like, the basement is flooded.
Martell went upstairs immediately to tell Danny about the flooding.
Danny! Danny, get up! The basement is flooded!
Then it started to get serious because we smelled smoke from the furnace. So that's when we called the fire department, the Dearborn Heights Fire Department.
The calls just came in one after another, especially since on top of the obvious that it was raining, a lot of people were in panic. You gotta remember, some people had never gone through the floods before, so they didn't know what to do.
We just started responding on trapped citizens, systematically going door to door. If they had smoke in the basement, we were securing utilities, pulling meters, shutting gas off to the house.
They told us if it gets to a certain level, we have to call them back immediately. That's when we have to evacuate, because it was going to get past our circuit breaker box and it can probably explode or electrocute.
Floodwater can cause any number of threats to a person's health and safety. Anything from contaminated water to the threat of fire or electrocution if the water comes in contact with live wires or circuit breakers.
There was a freeway that was impassable that had 15 foot of standing water. Just even where the creek would normally be, there was just, debris of trees and garbage and just stuff backing up.
Now the cousins had 2 very real dangers to consider. First, Danny was 6 months pregnant, and the contaminated water posed a serious threat to her unborn baby.
Come on, Martell, get him over there. Close the door.
And also, they have a disabled housemate who would not be able to evacuate the house on her own.
My best friend is paralyzed. She's on the 3rd floor. I wouldn't leave without her.
We need to be rescued from this house. The water is rising.
In May of 2019, Southeast Michigan was coming off one of its wettest Aprils on record. One storm on May 1st dropped only a few inches of rain, but that pushed rivers and creeks over the edge, flooding a good part of Dearborn Heights.
Oh my goodness. The water is rising. We need help now.
Cousins Danny Cummings and Martell Owens had to figure out a way to escape the flood while also caring for a paralyzed housemate.
What a horrible feeling that is. And to be physically unable to exit your own house, it was terrible.
By 3 a.m., their entire home was engulfed by floodwater.
Look at this. That's the bathroom right there, underwater. It's the living room. This is the kitchen.
They tried to call 911, but first responders were tied up. They were helping hundreds of other people that were also in the floods.
Kind of have to prioritize. If there's a fire, you go to the fire. If there's somebody in a house that's on fire in that situation, they trump everything. Life safety, if somebody's having chest pain in a flooded house, you bypass a house that somebody's just stranded in.
So Danny and Martell put the word out to anybody who could help.
We called the mayor, the councilwoman, and we were like news channels, everything. We're trapped in this house. We have someone disabled. We have a pregnant woman here. Like, we got to get out.
Danny decided to live stream on social media in the hopes that somebody would be watching and find a solution to get them out.
Please, 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 anyone who's watching this, please send help. We are trapped on the 3rd floor of our home. The water is rising. I'm pregnant and our housemate is disabled. Please send help now. This is an emergency. Please send help.
I actually went live so everyone can see, like, hey guys, this is not just like a little flood. Like, we're like literally trapped on the 3rd floor. We can't go to our main level. We can't go to the kitchen, can't go downstairs for anything.
Preparation for a potential disaster is often the key to minimizing any personal danger or property damage. But in the case of Martell and Danny, they had no idea they lived in a flood zone. So there wasn't a lot they could do except hope the first responders could get there quickly.
I didn't really know what to do, like what to expect, opposed to someone who probably like lived in the area and they've been coached on how to evacuate, what to have, you know, just in case of emergency and things like that. And then it happens to you.
Finally, by noon the following day, first responders were able to make contact with Danny and Martell.
When they said, okay, we're coming with a boat and everything, I was like, yes, yes.
When the fire department arrived, they strapped Danny and Martell's disabled housemate onto a specially designed board. After getting her into the boat, the two cousins hopped on board too. But they were not completely out of danger yet.
They were like, okay guys, don't rock the boat, sit still, sit in the middle, don't rock the boat, or it's gonna tip over and we're all gonna be in the waters.
The boat eventually left them off a mile from their home and out of the flood.
And then once we got like to dry land, it was just like, oh my gosh.
But rescuing trapped people was only part of how these first responders helped out during that storm.
We try to help people through not just the event itself, but the cleanup afterwards, and that's the real challenge. The flood happened on I think Wednesday, Thursday morning is when it was really bad, and by Saturday we had already had special garbage pickups. Like we started setting that up right away, and by that weekend, most people had all of the damaged stuff from the flood already hauled away.
And these heroes definitely went above and beyond.
We had a lot of firefighters came in off duty, a lot of police officers came in off duty, and a lot of our DPW workers came in off duty.
They're such a blessing to the whole community, especially to us, for coming right away and getting us out. They really are heroes, so I really appreciate them and respect them for that.
Although many people's homes were destroyed, there was still good to be taken from this devastating event.
One thing I've learned is what a great community that we're so fortunate to work at the city of Dearborn Heights. Our neighbors come out, they look after each other, and you realize what a great community this is to work for and how they all stick together and come together.
As the name suggests, flash floods can strike, well, in a flash. It's what makes these natural disasters so frightening. You can get 1 to 3 inch per hour rainfall rates that instantly flood roads. And when they hit, anyone caught in these rapidly rising waters can find themselves at the mercy of Mother Nature. The township of Pine Grove, Pennsylvania is located in Schuylkill County. It's about 100 miles from Philadelphia. With a population of just over 2,000 people, it definitely has the feel of a sleepy little town.
It's a close-knit community. Everybody kind of knows everybody, you know, rural areas, farmland.
A lot of people, you know, born and raised here, and they stay here, and they open up shop here, they open up restaurants here.
The town is so small, in fact, that they don't even have a full-time fire department. Everyone on their fire and rescue team are volunteers.
We do it because it's what's in our hearts and it's in our blood, and I can't stress that enough.
But it's a brotherhood, a good group of guys. We like to joke around and have fun, but you know, when the pager goes off, it's time to get serious.
Many people may not realize it, but 55% of all firefighters across the country are volunteers. They do it out of a sense of commitment to their communities, and it can also lead to a permanent career as a firefighter.
And while Pine Grove Volunteer Fire Department does take their job very seriously, not all of their rescues are necessarily 5-alarm emergencies.
Calls we get here, I mean, ranges. We get some different kind of calls. We've been on bear rescues. Just last month, I think we were called out to rescue a peacock. Again, when the pager goes off, you just never know. You don't know what the call's gonna be or what it's gonna turn out to be.
But being located on the Swatara River means that they do deal with some potential dangerous situations, mostly in the form of flash floods. Flash floods are just what the name says, floods that happen in a flash. They can be caused by slow-moving thunderstorms, hurricanes, or meltwater from snow or ice pack. Flash floods differ from regular floods because their time scale is less than 6 hours between when the rain falls and the onset of flooding. And in the past few years, Pine Grove has seen its fair share of flooding. Kyle Cleary has lived in town for almost 10 years.
I've had cars that were parked in this parking lot that got picked up, turned sideways, and into the side of my house. It's a very humbling experience to witness something like that.
And in the summer of 2018, Pine Grove was hit by not one, but 2 major floods.
Yeah!
On the morning of July 23rd, Zachary Reichert was on his way to work at Fort Indiantown Military Base.
What happened was that day with the flash floods, they actually took out the underpass, and I had to go an alternate route, which led to the flash flood.
Being a lifelong resident, Zachary did pay attention to the weather reports, but nothing sounded too out of the ordinary.
That day, it was a steady downpour. I did get weather alerts, but nothing about flash floods, and I mean, I never even paid attention to that before a flash flood.
Zachary took a detour through a neighborhood. But what he didn't realize, the Swatara River had overflowed, drowning the streets. Zachary could see the street was flooding, but he thought that he could make it through without much trouble.
So we were driving, I mean, and like everyone says, oh, you think you have a Jeep so you could drive anything. I mean, the water wasn't that high, even particularly when I was driving. It was at my tires.
People can often get a false sense of security when they are in large trucks or vehicles designed for rough terrain. But in this case, Zachary underestimated the sheer power of the rising water, which we should never do.
Zachary's car stalled out thanks to the floodwater. Then, to his disbelief, the car in front of him was being swept down the street.
It was out of nowhere. It looks like he just like took off and started floating.
We're starting to float.
On the morning of July 23rd, 2018, Zachary Reichert found himself in the middle of a street rapidly filling with water.
Current situation in Pine Grove. Someone could come help save me.
He knew he didn't have long and needed help immediately.
I called 911 right away. I said, hey, listen, my Jeep shut down. I don't know what to do. They're like, hang tight, we'll send help.
Kyle Cleary saw that Zachary was in a very precarious situation.
I came out of my front porch. I noticed a gentleman, he was stopped in standing water. And I tried to offer him, hey, you know, do you want me to come out and get you?
At that time, I'm like, no, this is gonna pass. I wasn't excited at all. Like I said, I was just sitting there in my gym clothes, ready to go to work. I called my boss, I called my wife, didn't think anything was gonna happen.
But the flooding did not pass. In fact, it got much worse.
And then within 10, 15 minutes, the water actually started coming into my Jeep through the door. So I'm just like, call my boss, I'm like, hey man, I don't know what to do right now. Like, do you think I should get on top of my Jeep? He's like, it's probably a good idea. You don't want to get entrapped.
There goes my Jeep.
Zachary climbed on top of his vehicle, waiting for help. But then his car started moving in the water.
My car is starting to rotate now. Yep, there goes my car.
It wasn't until my car started to turn, I'm like, yeah, this could be a real problem.
I'm not sure if I could swim this.
I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I'm not a great swimmer, and I can't tread water. Like, that's my biggest fear. And I don't know what's in these waters. Is there down electrical line? Is there snakes? And that was my point. Like, what do I do?
Zachary probably made a very wise decision to stay on top of his vehicle. There are a number of serious hazards in floodwaters, and if you slip, there's a real possibility of being swept away or injured by debris churning in the water.
With no other options, all Zachary could do was hold on and hope for a rescue. At that point, he decided to live stream his ordeal on social media.
I did call 911. Can only imagine what's in this water right now.
Back at his house, Zachary's wife, Courtney, was awakened with some frightening news.
His mom told me Zach is in a flood right now. And I was so confused because he should have been at work long before. And I saw him streaming live.
I was just driving out of nowhere. Water just got real high.
Courtney immediately called Zachary.
She's like, do not jump, Zach. Just absolutely, whatever you do, promise me you will not jump into those waters.
I told him, do not jump into that water. He is not a strong swimmer by any means. And I was very frantic at the time, worried for his safety.
Looking back and forth, it was like a panic, like, well, is help gonna come? Do I need to get down? Is it that, what if I do jump?
With the current growing stronger, Zachary's car started to rotate again.
And that was like when I started to panic.
About 2 minutes ago, I was facing that way. Now my car did a 180. I'm facing this way.
Like, either someone needs help or I need to get down, because if it starts drifting, it's gonna take my Jeep like a raft.
Fortunately, at that moment, help arrived in the form of the Pine Grove Volunteer Fire Department.
Thank you.
And I just jumped on their fire truck. They're like, get in. And then it was just like, I wasn't the only one. And everyone was like, essentially said the same thing. It just happened out of nowhere.
Zachary was lucky that day. The only thing he lost was his car. But he gained a strong respect for the weather and the men that came to rescue him.
It made me actually appreciate first responders, volunteer firefighters, volunteers, so much more, who just go out there, missing work, missing meals, missing time with their family, to give back to their community. So I think that really opened up to my eyes what we have. Man, I don't want to cry, but I feel like I'm probably gonna.
And as a member of the military, Zachary wanted to personally thank the men who, like himself, put their lives on the line to save each other.
What's up, guys? I don't know if you guys remember me, but I remember you guys for saving me. Thank you, guys. Not just for that day, but what you guys do. It was a very emotional day for me. It still is emotional. I can't thank you guys for enough. What you guys do that day, and that's the amazing point. You guys just kept on going back out for people and just said, we gotta save people, and that's heroic. That is truly heroic. It's emotional. And you guys didn't think twice of it. I remember that day. It was just like, gotta go get more people.
That's what we're here for, that's what we train for that stuff, and we work hard.
So thank you guys very much again. I greatly appreciate it.
We've seen how powerful the flow of a flash flood can be. Fortunately, we've also seen how teams of brave and well-trained first responders will always be there to come to the rescue. And a lesson I hope everyone takes away: when a flash flood warning is issued, don't drive. If you're already driving and you come upon the water in the road, even if it looks shallow, don't go into it. Turn around, don't drown. I'm Ginger Z. We'll see you next time.